In one corner lay the great head, made out of many thicknesses of paper, and with a carefully painted face. "This I hung from the ceiling by a wire," said Oz. "I stood behind the screen and pulled the thread to make the eyes and mouth move." "But how about the voice?" she inquired. "Oh, I am a ventriloquist," said the little man, "and I can throw the sound of my voice wherever I wish." "Really," said the Scarecrow, "you ought to be ashamed of yourself for being such a humbug." I certainly am," answered the little man sorrowfully. "But it was the only thing I could do. Sit down, please, and I will tell you my story. I was born in Omaha." "Why, that isn't very far from Kansas," cried Dorothy. "No, but it's farther from here," he said sadly. When I grew up, I became a ventriloquist, trained by a great master. After a time, I tired of that and became a balloonist. I'd go up in a balloon on circus day to draw a crowd of people. Well, one day, I went up in a balloon and the ropes got twisted so that I couldn't come down again. It went way up above the clouds. For days and a night, I traveled through the air, and on the morning of the second day, I awoke and found the balloon floating over a strange and beautiful country. The balloon came down gradually. Gradually means little by little, not all at once. I found myself in the midst of a strange people who, seeing me come from the clouds, thought I was a great wizard. Of course, they were afraid of me and promised to do anything I wished them to do. Just to amuse myself and keep the good people busy, I ordered them to build this city and my palace, and they did it all. Then I thought, as the country was so green and beautiful, I would call it the Emerald City, and I put green spectacles on all the people so that everything they saw was green. "But isn't everything here green?" asked Dorothy. "No more than any other city," replied Oz. "But when you wear green spectacles, of course everything you see looks green to you. My people have worn green glasses so long that most of them think it really is an Emerald City. I have been good to the people, and they like me, but ever since this palace was built, I have shut myself up and would not see any of them. While I had no magical powers at all, I soon found out that the witches were really able to do wonderful things. The witches of the East and West were terribly wicked, and had they not thought I was more powerful than they themselves, they would surely have destroyed me. So you can imagine how pleased I was when I heard your house had fallen on the Wicked Witch of the East. When you came to me, I was willing to promise anything if you would only do away with the other witch. But now that you have melted her, I'm ashamed to say that I cannot keep my promises." "Well, I think you are a very bad man," said Dorothy. "Oh, no, my dear. I am really a very good man, but I am a very bad wizard, I must admit." "Can you give me brains?" asked the Scarecrow. "You don't need them. You are learning something every day. A baby has brains, but it doesn't know much. Experience is the only thing that brings knowledge, and the longer you are on Earth, the more experience you are sure to get." "Well, that may be true," said the Scarecrow, "but I shall be very unhappy unless you give me brains." "Well," Oz said with a sigh, "if you will come to me tomorrow morning, I will stuff your head with brains. I cannot tell you how to use them, however. You must find that out for yourself." "Oh, thank you, cried the Scarecrow. "I'll find a way to use them, never fear." "But how about my courage?" asked the Lion anxiously. You have plenty of courage, I'm sure, answered Oz. All you need is confidence in yourself. True courage is in facing danger when you are afraid, and that kind of courage you have plenty. Well, perhaps, but I'm still scared, said the lion. I'll be very unhappy unless you give me courage that makes me forget I'm afraid. Very well. I'll give you that sort of courage tomorrow, said Oz. How about my heart? Asked the Tin Woodman. Why, as for that, answered Oz, I think a heart makes most people unhappy. You really are in luck not to have a heart. I will bear all the unhappiness without a murmur if you will give me a heart, said the Tin Woodman. Very well, answered Oz meekly. Come to me tomorrow, and you shall have a heart. And now, said Dorothy, how am I to get back to Kansas? We shall have to think about that, replied the little man. Give me a day or two to consider the matter, and I'll try to find a way. There is only one thing I ask in return for my help, such as it is. You must keep my secret, and tell no one I am a humbug. They agreed, and went back to their rooms in high spirits. Even Dorothy had hope that Oz would find a way to send her home. Next morning, the Scarecrow said to his friends, I'm going to Oz to get my brains at last. When I return, I shall be as other men are. I have always liked you the way you were, said Dorothy simply. He went to the throne room, where he rapped on the door. Come in, said Oz. I've come for my brains, said the Scarecrow, a little uneasily. Oh, yes, sit down, said Oz. Please excuse me for removing your head, but I must put your brains in the proper place. That's all right, said the Scarecrow, as long as it will be a better one when you put it on again. So the wizard unfastened his head. Then he took up some bran, mixed in many pins and needles, and filled the top of the Scarecrow's head with the mixture. He stuffed the rest of the space with straw. When he had fastened the Scarecrow's head on again, he said, There now, I've given you a lot of brand new brains. Ha ha ha. That's a pun. Bran new instead of brand new. Because he put where does it say that he stuffed it with? Oh, here with bran. What's that? Bran, I think bran is like from wheat. It's like a part of wheat. So the Scarecrow, both pleased and proud at the fulfillment of his great wish, thanked Oz warmly and went back to his friends. Let's see who's next. Aha. Dorothy looked at the Scarecrow curiously. His head was quite bulging out at the top with brains. She asked him how he felt. I feel wise indeed, he answered earnestly. Well, I must go to Oz to get my heart, said the Woodman. So he walked to the throne room and knocked at the door. Come in, called Oz, and the Woodman entered and said, I have come for my heart. Very well, said the little man, but I shall have to cut a hole in your breast so I can put your heart in the right place. And Oz brought a pair of tinner's shears and cut a small square hole in the left side of the Tin Woodman's breast. Then he showed the Woodman a pretty heart made entirely of silk and stuffed with sawdust. Isn't it a beauty? He asked. Oh, indeed, replied the Tin Woodman, but is it a kind heart? Oh, very, answered Oz. He put the heart in the Woodman's breast and replaced the square of tin, soldering it neatly. Soldering it is how you put, like, melting part of the metal to make it stick together. The Woodman exclaimed his gratitude and returned to his friends. The Lion walked into the throne room and knocked at the door. Come in, said Oz. I have come for my courage, answered the lion as he entered. Very well, said the little man. He went to a cupboard and reached up to a high shelf, took down a square green bottle, and poured its contents into a green gold dish. Placing this before the cowardly lion, the wizard said, "Drink." "What is it?" asked the lion. "Well," answered Oz, "if it were inside you, it would be courage. But courage is always inside one, so that this really cannot be called courage until you have swallowed it." The lion hesitated no longer, but drank till the dish was empty. "How do you feel now?" asked Oz. "Full of courage," replied the lion, and went back to his friends. Oz, left to himself, smiled to think of his success. "How can I help being a humbug?" he said. "They think I can do anything, but it will take more than imagination to get Dorothy back to Kansas." For 3 sad days, Dorothy heard nothing from Oz, and she longed more than ever to get back to Kansas. Finally, Oz sent for her. "Sit down, my dear. I think I have found a way to get you home." "We each came to this country by air," said the wizard. "I by balloon, and you by cyclone. So I believe the best way to get across the desert will be through the air. I have plenty of silk in the palace to make a balloon, and we can fill it with hot air to make it float." "We?" exclaimed the girl. "Are you going with me?" "Yes," he answered. "Now let's begin work on our balloon." As fast as Oz cut the strips of silk into the proper shape, Dorothy sewed them neatly together. First, a strip of light green silk, then dark green, then emerald green. It took 3 days, but when it was finished, they had a big bag of green silk 20 feet long. Then Oz painted it on the inside with a coat of thin glue to make it airtight. He sent the soldier with the green whiskers for a big clothes basket, which he fastened with many ropes to the bottom of the balloon. When all was ready, Oz sent word to his people that he was going to make a visit to a great brother wizard who lived in the clouds. The news spread rapidly, and everyone came to see the wonderful sight. The woodman chopped a big pile of wood and made a fire, and Oz held the bottom of the balloon over the fire so that the hot air would be caught in the silken bag. The balloon swelled out and rose into the air. Then Oz got into the basket and said, "I am now going away to make a visit. While I am gone, the Scarecrow will rule over you. Obey him as you would me." The balloon tugged at the ropes that held it to the ground, for the air within it was hot, making it so light in weight that it pulled hard to rise into the sky. "Come on, Dorothy," cried the wizard. "Hurry, or the balloon will fly away." Toto had run after a kitten, but Dorothy found him and picked him up and ran toward the balloon. She was so close, and Oz was holding out his hand to help her, when crack went the ropes, and the balloon rose up in the air without the little girl. "Come back!" she screamed from down below. "I want to go too!" "I can't come back, my dear," called Oz from the basket. "Goodbye!" "Goodbye!" shouted everyone, and all eyes were turned upward to where the wizard rode in the basket, rising farther and farther into the sky. And that was the last any of them ever saw of Oz, the wonderful wizard, though the people remembered him lovingly, recalling that he'd built the beautiful Emerald City and left the wise Scarecrow to rule over them. Oh no. What is she gonna do?